On July 2nd, 2025, Ukraine struck a devastating blow against Russia's faltering war machine, obliterating a command post in Korenevo, Kursk, with a U.S.-supplied HIMARS strike, killing Major General Mikhail Gudkov, Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the Russian Navy. Confirmed by Russia's Defense Ministry and Primorsky Krai Governor Oleg Katsemyako on July 3rd, per Newsweek, this precision attack crippled Vladimir Putin's summer offensive in Ukraine's Sumy region, where 50,000 troops are amassed to carve a 10-kilometer buffer zone, per Reuters. Paired with the UK Ministry of Defence's June 30th report of 20,538 Russian soldiers going AWOL since 2022, the strike exposes a military collapsing under desertion, brutality, and disarray. As Putin's campaign unravels, Ukraine's strategic brilliance, bolstered by Western weapons and intelligence, offers a path to victory, preserving sovereignty and securing NATO and EU aspirations, if the West acts decisively before this window closes. The Russia-Ukraine war, ignited by Putin's 2014 annexation of Crimea, escalated in February 2022 with a full-scale invasion aimed at crushing Ukraine's sovereignty and blocking its NATO and EU ambitions. Russia's $87 billion defense budget, per Cypri, dwarfed Ukraine's $12 billion, yet Putin underestimated Ukraine's resolve. By July 2025, Russia holds 20% of Ukraine's territory per Osin at a staggering cost. Over 1 million casualties and $50 billion in equipment losses per Oryx. Putin's demands, ceding Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia, capping Ukraine's military and barring Western alliances per the Atlantic Council, are non-negotiable. President Volodymyr Zelensky, transformed from comedian to wartime icon, declared in the July 2025 Kyiv speech, "We fight for freedom, not Putin's empire." The HIMARS strike and Russia's AWOL crisis have turned Putin's blitz into a quagmire, exposing his military's fragility. Launched in spring 2025, Putin's Sumy offensive aims to create a 10-kilometer buffer zone to shield Russia's border regions, particularly after Ukraine's August 2024 Kursk incursion seized 400 square miles until March 2025, costing Russia 62,400 troops, per Reuters. Zelensky reported on May 28 that Russia massed 50,000 troops, including elite VDV paratroopers and the 155th Naval Infantry Brigade, near Sumy, per Reuters. Despite capturing villages like Razin and Milov, per Al Jazeera, Russia's gains are minimal, with a 4-mile penetration into northern Sumy, per PBS. Ukraine's Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrsky declared on June 29th, "The enemy's summer offensive is faltering," per Vision Nerjo on X. The July 2nd HIMARS strike, killing Gudkov, underscores Russia's inability to sustain its offensive against Ukraine's precision warfare. On July 2nd, Ukraine's HIMARS strike targeted a 155th Naval Infantry Brigade command post in Korenevo, Kursk, 19 miles from the border, killing Gudkov and over 10 senior officers, per The Guardian. Newsweek and RI confirmed Gudkov, 42, a hero of Russia, awarded in 2023, died in combat work. Promoted by Putin in March 2025 to Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the Navy, Gudkov oversaw Marine units and retained operational control over the 155th Brigade, per Thanes.ru. The strike, involving 4 HIMARS missiles, likely GMLRS rockets with 43-mile range, per Transcript, destroyed the command post. Ukrainian intelligence, possibly via mole or intercepted calls from Marines to Vladivostok during city celebrations, pinpointed Gudkov's location, per The Guardian's MiG-41 telegram reports. Ukraine's silence aligns with its policy of not confirming targeted strikes, per BBC, signaling a calculated strategy to disrupt Russia's command structure. The Vladivostok-based 155th Naval Infantry Brigade has been a cornerstone of Putin's invasion since 2022, involved in the failed Kyiv push, Volodar assaults, and Kursk counterattacks, per The Guardian. Ukraine accuses the brigade of war crimes, including civilian killings in Bucha and POW executions, per Thanes.ru. Reconstituted 8 times due to losses, it lost 2,400 of 3,000 personnel in Volodar, per Thanes.ru. Gudkov's leadership sent Marines into meat grinder assaults, per Business Insider. His death disrupts the brigade's command, weakening Russia's Sumy offensive, which relies on small assault groups and drones, per ISW. The brigade's history of atrocities, including alleged beheadings, per Forbes' David Axe, underscores Ukraine's view of Gudkov as a war criminal whose elimination was a strategic and moral necessity. The UK MOD's June 30th report, citing Mediazona, revealed 20,538 Russian soldiers face court for desertion or AWOL since 2022, with 18,159 AWOL cases, 88.4%, and 17,721 convictions, 86.2%, under Section 337, carrying 10-year sentences. Medusa reported Yevgeny Sandelsky's 10-year sentence for desertion, while World Crunch noted 49,000 total deserters, totaling nearly 70,000 troops abandoning Putin's war. Soldier Vladimir, per World Crunch, chose prison over death. Better this than lying under a bush in Ukraine. His wife Elena said, "Our child will know his father." Brutal Dedovshchina hazing, beatings, extortion, and rape threats per foreign policy drives desertions. In 2018, soldier Artyom Pakidin shot himself after hazing, per the Moscow Times. In May 2025, the Express reported soldiers refusing combat faced gladiatorial death matches, with one Donbass soldier choking another for freedom. Financial incentives, 450% higher advance payments, and wages 600% above Russia's average, per BBC monitoring, are desperate ploys to retain troops who see no cause worth dying for. Russia's military is crippled by inadequate training and medical care, fueling AWOL rates. Contract soldiers receive just 5 days of training, per the MOD, unfit for Ukraine's fortified defenses. George Barros told Business Insider in September 2024, Russian soldier quality is shockingly low. The Washington Post noted Russia's summer 2025 offensive relies on mass assaults due to training deficits, corruption, and equipment shortages. Analyst Ian Matveev said, "Dead soldiers are traded for territory." Medical care is dire. A November 2024 MOD report cited a Novosibirsk riot by the 41st Combined Arms Army, where unhealed soldiers smashed barracks and fled rather than return to the front. SEPA's June 27th article reported Russia's 1 million casualties, worsened by absent first aid and under-equipped hospitals. A Russian doctor, per Transformer Telegram, said, "No beds, no medicine, no hope." These systemic failures erode Russia's ability to sustain its Sumy offensive, leaving troops demoralized and vulnerable. Ukraine's HIMARS, crewed by 3 and firing 6 GMLRS rockets or ATACMS missiles up to 186 miles, is road mobile at 53 miles per hour, evading Russian counterstrikes, per the transcript. The July 2nd Kartzisk ammo depot strike in Donetsk destroyed millions in artillery shells, missiles, and possibly North Korean drones for $50,000, per HUR. On July 1st, drones hit the Kupol plant in Udmurt, 800 miles from the front, collapsing a 1,300 square meter roof and halting drone microcircuit production, per SDRA. On June 30th, Storm Shadow missiles struck a Donetsk command post, disrupting the 8th Combined Arms Army, per Ukrinform. Operation Night Blaze, using FPV drones with 140 km per hour dives, destroyed $10 million in Russian fuel for $50,000, per HUR. The August 2024 Kursk incursion, holding 400 square miles until March 2025, exposed Russia's logistical weaknesses, per Reuters. Ukraine strikes rely on partisan networks and SBU intelligence. Alina, 23, from Zaporizhia, risks torture too. Relay coordinates via encrypted apps, enabling strikes like Kartzisk, per BBC Ukraine. SBU operative Andriy Yusov uses Sentinel-2 imagery and partisan data to target supply lines like the Tokmak-Melitopol Railway, per HUR. In occupied Donetsk, 19-year-old Dmitro smuggled drone components past Russian checkpoints, per Radio Free Europe. Ukraine's $4 billion drone program, per Defense Express, amplifies these efforts, producing 3,000 FPV drones monthly, per the Kyiv Independent. These networks, combined with Western-supplied HIMARS and ATACMS, give Ukraine a decisive edge in disrupting Russia's operations. The West's $435 billion in aid, for the Kiel Institute, has prioritized offense over victory, delays in ATACMS approval for Russian targets until November 2024 and unrestricted use in May 2025. Per Politico, cost momentum. The U.S. paused Patriot and Stinger shipments in July 2025, citing stockpile concerns under Pentagon Policy Chief Elbridge Colby, per The Guardian. This pause, following a March 2025 aid cutoff to pressure ceasefire talks, risks emboldening Russia, per the Kiev Independent. The EU's $70 billion gas payments to Russia in 2022 exceeded Ukraine aid, per GIS, and only 7 banks face swift sanctions, per Foreign Affairs' Michael Carpenter. The West feared Putin's red lines, a Kiev Post analyst noted, delaying Ukraine's offensive potential. Yet, the HIMARS strike on Gudkov demonstrates the critical impact of U.S. weapons, urging a reversal of the pause. Russia's military losses: 1,149 armored vehicles, 3,098 infantry vehicles, 300 artillery systems, and 1,865 tanks since January 2024, per the Center for Strategic and International Studies, outpace Ukraine's at a 5-to-1 ratio. Reliance on Iran and North Korea for munitions, per Reuters, highlights shortages. Economically, a 20% interest rate, 68% sovereign wealth fund decline since 2022, and 9% inflation signal collapse, per Carpenter. The EU's $23.5 billion gas import sustained Putin, but proposed 2027 gas ban could cut oil profits by 25% in 2025, per the European Commission. Putin's 2026 budget cuts, per Reuters, reflect financial desperation, further undermining his ability to sustain the Sumy offensive. Russia's brutality contrasts sharply with Ukraine's precision. On July 2nd, Russia's drone attack on Zhytomyr killed 2 and injured 80 civilians, per Ukrinform. A UN report noted a 37% rise in civilian casualties from December 2024 to May 2025, with 968 killed and 4,807 injured, mostly in Ukrainian-held areas. Russia's execution of 35 Ukrainian POWs and forced recruitment of children for sabotage violate international law. Per Danielle Bell of the UN Human Rights Monitoring Mission, Ukraine targets military assets, sparing civilians. Zelensky told CNN in 2025, "We'll fight with shovels if we must." Drone operator Lieutenant Mykola Kovalenko dedicated strikes to his occupied family, per HUR. Lviv teacher Maria, 60, rebuilds schools amid missile strikes, telling Reuters, "We build while they destroy." In contrast, Russian conscripts, like a Kursk survivor, told Medusa, "We're cannon fodder." Michael Carpenter's Foreign Affairs Roadmap for Ukraine's Victory, Preserving Sovereignty and Securing NATO/EU Paths, outlines 4 key steps. Seizing frozen assets. The West's $300 billion in frozen Russian assets could fund Ukraine's $4 billion drone program and infrastructure rebuilding, per Defense Express. Legal concerns raised by France's Emmanuel Macron, per Reuters, are countered by Putin's illegal invasion, per The Guardian's Philip Inman. Co-production agreements. Germany's $5 billion missile co-production deal and Denmark's $79 million defense integration, per Defense Industry Europe, reduce Ukraine's reliance on Western aid. Ukraine's July 2nd Joint Weapons Initiative invites global investment, defying Putin's isolation demands. Strangling Russia's economy. An EU gas ban by 2027 and sanctions on Russia's shadow fleet and Chinese trade could cripple Moscow's war funding, per the European Commission. Isolating China. Sanctioning Chinese firms supplying Russia and exploiting Beijing's Arctic and Siberian ambitions, per the BBC and The Hill, could weaken Moscow's supply chain, especially with Iran sidelined by Israel's June 2025 strikes, per Haaretz. Zelensky's July 3rd deal with U.S. firm Swiftbeat for 500 drones, per the Kiev Independent, bolsters Ukraine's arsenal, while a $500 million EU drone pledge, per Bloomberg, enhances production. These steps, paired with Russia's AWOL crisis and Gudkov's elimination, position Ukraine to exploit Putin's faltering offensive. Zelensky's leadership galvanizes hope. "We'll fight with shovels if we must," he told CNN in 2025, a rallying cry viewed 10 million times on Telegram. Drone operator Lieutenant Mykola Kovalenko, striking from Dnipro, dedicated hits to his occupied family in Donetsk, per HUR. Sergeant Irina Pavlenko, a former robotics student, piloted FPV drones in the Kursk strike, per HUR. Civilians like Maria, a 60-year-old Lviv teacher, rebuild schools amid Russian missile strikes, telling Reuters, "We build while they destroy." On Russia's side, despair reigns. A Kursk conscript told Medusa, "We're cannon fodder, send a die for nothing." Ukraine's momentum, backed by Maxar imagery showing stalled Russian fronts, signals a turning point. A Ukrainian victory would redefine global security. NATO's $1.5 billion aid boost in 2025 per NATO and EU integration efforts counter Putin's demands for Ukraine's neutrality. China's wavering support for Russia, strained by Arctic and Siberian ambitions, put a hill, weakens Moscow's axis. The U.S., despite its July 2025 aid pause, faces pressure to resume shipments, per CNN, especially after the HIMARS strike success. Robert Person of the Council on Foreign Relations told the Kyiv Independent in May 2025, Putin's root causes are a smokescreen for turning Ukraine into a vassal state. Ukraine's defiance, exemplified by the Gudkov strike, rejects this vision. By 6 o'clock on July 4th, 2025, Ukraine's drone units planned new strikes, per HUR, their resolve unshaken. The HIMARS strike on Gudkov was a message. Ukraine can hit Russia's elite and will never bow to Putin's demands. With Russia's military crippled by desertions, poor training, and economic collapse, Ukraine stands at a tipping point. Can it seize this moment, or will Putin's stubbornness prolong the war? Subscribe, like, and comment, and check our videos on Ukraine's Kursk strike or Russia's economic collapse for more insights.